Howdy folks! For those of you who don't know, I'm sort of young. Actually, I was born in the good year of 2002, so I missed the Game Boy boat. Sure, I had a go at some of the Game Boy Advance library through the DS and some of the original Game Boy stuff through the 3DS, but my experience with the Game Boy's library is slim pickings otherwise, so there's not any nostalgia behind my opinions on the system. My Game Boy is a Game Boy Color with a shell swap, so the back is clear. It's pretty cool to look at, although I do think that the color section of the logo makes it sort of look like a kid's product. Most of the colors for the Game Boy Color were unapologetically 90s, and the yellow unit I have is no exception. There are some other Game Boy models, but I don't think any of them are worth getting unless you can find them for cheap or are a classic Game Boy purist or something. The Game Boy Pocket, for example, is arguably a bit sleeker than the Game Boy Color, but it loses the color display and uses AAA batteries. And the original classic DMG Game Boy is way too overrated, to be honest.
So I says to her, I says, "Hey, is that Bob?"
Wow, he looks great.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, did you cut your hair?
I don't have any hair, Jim.
He doesn't have any hair, stupid dork.
The buttons are great like the other Game Boy systems, and it's a bit bigger so it's a little more comfortable to hold, but it's also way too big to bring with you without a case or a bag, uses 4 whole AA batteries per charge, and the pea green display is actually awful. I really did try using this one for a bit, but it wasn't a great experience. The DMG has most definitely aged a lot worse than the Game Boy Pocket or the Color.
You guys all think you're so much better than me.
Oh, Meg, that is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
And speaking of screens, the biggest thing that threw me off about the Game Boy when I started using it is the display. There is literally no backlight, so you can't play it in dim or dark places. It's a little annoying, but honestly the screen doesn't bother me that much. It's easy enough to find a spot with proper lighting. Actually, I think that the lack of a backlight is kind of a two-sided story. The Game Boy Color screen is by far the most viewable display I've ever used in bright environments. Actually, it's far more viewable than even my phone screen in direct sunlight. I'm not saying I want more non-backlit screens or anything, and I would probably prefer a backlight, but it's definitely not as much of an annoyance as I thought it would be, and if it really is a big deal to you, I'm pretty sure there are like a million backlight mods for all of the Game Boy models. Plus, I think that the lack of a backlight actually serves another purpose, because the battery life on this thing is fucking nuts. I think I swapped the batteries like once, but they last 15 hours at least. I don't worry about the battery when I take my Game Boy places, and you'll probably have enough time to save your game before it does putter out. Something annoying I noticed is that there's no battery indicator, so you have to pay attention to that little red light next to the screen. If it's getting dimmer, that means the battery is getting lower, but that is literally the only indication that it's time to swap your batteries. And more presentation stuff when it has to do with games, the audio, which is like alright, I guess. There are some awesome chiptune soundtracks for the Game Boy, but not every game has an original soundtrack that holds up, and the speaker isn't up to snuff for modern standards either. I mean, you can sort of hear it in spaces that aren't too loud, but it's really quiet. Thankfully, this thing has a headphone jack. No, seriously, it's so funny that they keep on getting rid of the headphone jack for space on, like, iPhones, because the fucking Game Boy had one. Like, there is really not that much of an excuse if this freaking handheld from, like, 30 years ago has a headphone jack. Anyways, I'm getting, like, way off topic. The controls, they are really nice.
Nice.
Man, I freaking miss when Nintendo systems had buttons like these. Like the SNES controller, top tier, and the Game Boy buttons are on that level, I think. The D-pad is pretty small for modern standards and is comparable in size to like the Wiimote D-pad, but it's fine because it's kind of squishy. It's really comfy and it wasn't noticeably annoying to use. Overall, like I said a second ago, they hold up. I am actually really surprised at just how comfy the Game Boy is to use. They really got it right the first time. And no, this is fine and dandy, of course, but how does it feel to use the Game Boy as a daily driver handheld? It's awesome, I love it. The Game Boy literally does one thing, it just plays games, but it does that really well. Most Game Boy titles are designed with the portability of the hardware in mind, and as a result, you see these really compact, tight experiences. With something like the Nintendo Switch, I feel like most games are ports of console games, or they're designed to be played on a TV as well as a handheld. Most of them are designed with the idea that somebody is going to set a few hours to the side to sit down and play a video game. Older handheld games, and especially more retro games, flip that idea on its head and prioritize fun, snappy experiences you can play in short bursts. Plus, the durability of the Game Boy and its pocketability make it like the ultimate touching grass system. I mean, plus it's actually really nice to play outside because of the non-backlit screen, but I already said that. I found myself playing Game Boy games in the car, at cafes, between work meeting, or even while tabling at a farmer's market. It fits into my busy adult life far better than any other handheld does. Generally, the Game Boy Color feels so weird in this era of enshittification. Sure, the Game Boy is dated and it has its problems, but its condition in 2026 is a testament to the overall build quality of older tech and just what people did to make sure that these things would last in the hands of regular users. Well, anyways, what's a console without its games?
Man, I just want to say, oh my goodness, this thing feels so free and nice to just turn on and use. Like, it's very satisfying. Where the heck did the intro screens for handhelds go?
My Game Boy library is still growing, so I'm sure I'll come back to this topic another time. But for now, I could talk about a few different titles. Oftentimes, when you talk about the Game Boy, it's going to be associated with the Pokemon series, but there are an assortment of fun classic RPGs on the system. I've been working towards finishing Dragon Warriors 1 and 2, which are actually the first two Dragon Quest games. I don't know why the hell Square Enix decided to call these Dragon Warrior, because Dragon Quest works fine as a name, but oh well. These are honestly quintessential RPGs. Dragon Warrior 1 doesn't have too much of a fancy story or anything, but it sets up the environment in the world pretty well, so I can't complain. Basically, this evil dragon dude steals the princess and you gotta go save her. Dragon Warrior is pretty easy, but it also doesn't hold your hand, which I actually really like. It makes the world feel grander and like more of a quest. A dragon quest. You're pointed in vague directions, like, oh, head north for a bit, then go west till you hit a river. There'll be a town by the shore. I like that. It feels kind of like it harks back to like the tabletop RPGs that I played a lot of as a kid. Donkey Kong for the Game Boy is also another really awesome game. It seems like a simple arcade port at first, but it's got a twist. After you finish the original arcade levels, Donkey Kong 94 pulls the rug under your feet and reveals that it's got a ton of extra levels with fun puzzles, gimmicks, and themes. One of my favorite parts about Donkey Kong on the Game Boy is the movement. Mario could do side flips and handstands, which is crazy because this game predates Mario 64, and often people attribute Mario's more athletic moveset to that game. Cool shit, man. Seriously though, Mario's movement adds a lot to the overall game feel. I love it. The puzzles are also really fun, and some of them are really great brain teasers. There's this level of the third world, I believe, where you gotta change the flow of these bug enemies going through a small spot, and you have to keep one to ride it over some spikes that are in said small spot. It's got very creative level design, and they even bring back some of the stuff from like Donkey Kong Jr. with like the vines. It's really cool. And how could I possibly do a Game Boy video without talking about Tetris? I know I just said that when you talk about the Game Boy, people think about Pokemon, but just as much, people think about the original version of Tetris. The popular puzzle game is a Game Boy classic, and I did have a copy of the original version for a while before trading it with my little brother for Tetris Deluxe, which I strongly prefer. Moving the Tetraminos left or right is way snappier, which is a huge deal for faster levels, and the new colors and modes are good. You do lose the classic Tetris music, but the new tracks are fine. I'm not really playing with the speakers up most of the time anyways. And like I play this game on the go in short bursts, so I'm in public. I'm not going to be listening to music. But anyways, it's my go-to Game Boy game to take with me when I'm out and about because it's so easy to pick up. Another neat on-the-go title I enjoy is Solar Striker, a shoot-'em-up developed by Nintendo itself. It's a very simple game. You shoot shit. I don't know what else to say, man. The music is a banger. Seriously though, this title's simplicity plays to its strengths. It's pretty short, but it also really encourages you to master the game to get a little bit farther with a little bit of a better score. I'm absolutely butt cheeks at Solar Striker, so it's taken me a while to actually get to the end, but it's really fun. You know what, some of the game design in this title is not unlike Star Fox. It makes me really long for more arcadey Nintendo games in this current day and age. They're really good at making games like this actually, and I'm sure they'd be far more affordable than the $50 to $80 games in the modern day. I'm just saying, Nintendo, if you're listening to this, I beg you, please make more arcadey games. They rock. I love them. Yeah, that's all. Despite the Game Boy's age and my complete lack of nostalgia, this little console has squeezed itself into my daily carry because, well, it's basically built for that. There's this growing appeal to decentralizing from a smartphone, and I get why something like the Game Boy is a good candidate to be more intentional with your time. Even outside of that hipster-ass viewpoint, the Nintendo Game Boy line of consoles is actually a really cool choice for retro game enthusiasts. I am really glad I went out of my way to check the Game Boy out, because this thing rocks, and it's already introduced me to so many classic titles that I will probably continue playing for a long time. For now, it's firmly slotted into my everyday carry, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. But yes, I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, my friends, and thank you to these Patreon supporters. Your help is actually what allowed me to have the extra spending money to purchase some Game Boy titles, so I really appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, consider joining them via the link below. I hope your basking rock stays nice and warm, and you guys have a good one. Adios.